Welcome to the Information Technology Outage Workshop presented by the Disaster Resistance Community Group. If viewed as a group and moving straight into the presentation, participants should consider having representation from any organization who perform critical or even life-saving functions who are dependent on some form of information technology to provide those services. You may ask, how do we know? The answer is simple. Look around at the equipment and networks you use every day. Ask yourself, if I turn any of these items off, can I still do my job? If the answer is no, then information technology is important to you. This presentation is intended to be paused as pertinent questions or discussion with partner organizations and stakeholders need to occur. If those discussions need to happen over time, you may leave this presentation and return at any time. Simply press the key to advance the presentation so to proceed ahead to the slide from which you paused or left the presentation. As with most learning experiences, you get out of them what you put into them in effort. We highly encourage participants, when directed, to gather working groups and conduct discussions on the subject presented herein. This presentation should take 3 to 4 hours if discussions are conducted as directed in the presentation. Participants may move through the presentation without pause, conducting the discussions later, which should take approximately 1 hour. So what is this workshop about? There are lots of people and organizations depending on you and your colleagues to do their job. So much of that job is made easier through the use of computers, networks, internet communications, and the ability to quickly share information. This workshop is not about the nuts and bolts of information technology. We don't expect you to be a technician or an expert in networks, communications, or computer servers. Although many people possess some level of knowledge in that respect, it's not the focus of this presentation. Rather, this workshop is about you, your job, and how you can make prudent plans for how you'd continue to do your job without the assistance of information technology, either in the short term or long term. There is no doubt about our reliance on information technology and communications in our modern world. Unfortunately, it seems as though we are too busy to worry about these systems and that we often take them for granted. If these networks were to go down, for whatever reason, essential, perhaps even life-saving functions could not be performed. For those not prepared, lack of access to important data, records, and other types of information could lead to ruin. There are several ways in which information technology and communication systems could be rendered unusable. Since communications networks are controlled digitally, computer viruses or hackers can cause slowdowns or deny access. Space weather, specifically coronal mass ejections, could cause overload of Earth's magnetic field, burning out sensitive electronics. Snow and windstorms can damage power lines and network facilities with the accompanying loss of information or communications access. It doesn't matter why we've lost these networks, but the consequence of doing so could be disastrous. So where is your information? And what IT and communication services do you use every day? What if you were denied access to your information and these tools for an extended period of time? As an example, a number of small businesses were not damaged, but experienced extended power outages during Hurricane Sandy. Despite having the inventory and the skills to bring in revenue, they were hampered or prevented from working because they could not access their completely automated finance and accounting systems. This led to cash flow problems, which of course is the lifeblood of small business, and thus hundreds, perhaps thousands, closed or never will reopen their doors because they couldn't process payments or make disbursements. Luckily, we can use some techniques from a disaster preparedness concept called COOP, or Continuity of Operations Planning, envisioned as a way to keep organizations and employees productive after the loss of their facility. It is a systematic way of looking at what an organization or employee must get accomplished, what tasks can be set aside for later, and what resources will be needed to carry on with the work. The ultimate objective of COOP, Continuity of Operations Planning, is to sustain operations when denied the use of existing resources like information technology or communications networks, so to still perform essential work functions. Before a disaster, that might mean assessing, developing, training, and exercising a plan that can be enacted should an outage occur. During a disaster, activation, notification, protective actions, and/or execution of the plan developed and rehearsed previously. And then after you have implemented the plan, the monitoring of the recovery systems that will allow access to networks and impacted facilities to determine resumption of normal work operations. To identify how to overcome the challenges of an IT or communications outage, for whatever reason, we just first need to identify, through an iterative process, the tasks that must be accomplished and the systems and networks necessary to accomplish them, and those tasks that can wait until later. To help us better understand the COOP process, we need to review some definitions. Mission Essential Functions, or MEF, are functions that enable an organization to provide vital services, exercise civil authority, maintain safety and well-being of the general populace, and sustain industrial and economic base in an emergency. In other words, for any one single agency, these are things that just must be done. Conversely, non-mission essential functions are functions that, although important to an agency's mission, can be temporarily postponed or delayed in the interest of efficiency during a crisis situation. In many cases, without vital records and systems necessary to perform these work functions, it may not be deemed effective to accomplish. Identifying these records and systems and having them available to support designated mission essential functions is very important. And then finally, there's the concept of the alternate relocation point. This is an alternate facility in which the mission essential function personnel could relocate to continue their mission essential functions in the event of a primary facility being lost, incapacitated, or threatened. So how do you determine what is essential? You can ask yourself these questions. Is this a core or support function of your business? Can this function go to sleep for 30 days with no ill effects? Is this function vital to someone's health or welfare? Is this function vital to another identified mission essential function? Mission essential function systems are those that are absolutely required to maintain a minimally acceptable performance of that function. Just as not all functions are mission essential, not all IT or communications networks are essential in light of an extremely scaled back operation. In many cases, systems determined non-mission essential and not accessible are often considered just to go to sleep until the eventual resumption of normal operations. Mission essential vital information is of great importance. Without the information necessary to carry out mission essential function tasks, the function cannot be sustained. As you will see later, where that vital information is stored and how it is accessed is of utmost concern. Employees with the knowledge of how to access and use vital information are important to identify as well. Having the information available doesn't do anyone any good if there's no one around who can access it. Working with other participants or in a subsequent offline discussion, answer the following questions. What is your organization's mission essential function, MEF? What other MEFs must be in place for us to accomplish your stated primary MEF? Are there any vital computer files, records, or documentation necessary to support the MEFs that you've identified? What personnel must be available for you to either access or use the vital information necessary to perform your identified MEFs? This activity is a simple example of how over time you and your organization can systematically identify your mission essential functions and the information systems necessary to perform those functions. You may pause the presentation while you have these discussions. Once vital information has been identified, so too can we identify where that information is stored and how do we get to it and how do we use it. Is information stored where you can access it directly, like on a desktop or a laptop computer? If so, then perhaps the only requirement for accessing information is a reliable power supply. If, however, the information is stored remotely on a server or the cloud, then its availability is dependent on each and every network system working. Obviously, direct access is preferred. Additionally, most electronic files and data require supporting systems to be useful. Examples include operating systems like Windows or Apple OS. They also include software applications for documents, forms, spreadsheets, websites, graphics, even databases. Working with other participants or in a subsequent offline discussion, answer the following questions. For the vital information and systems that you identified previously, do you have direct access to this information? In other words, no other networks or transmission lines between you and the stored information. Do you have direct access to the operating system necessary to access the vital information identified? Do you have direct access to the specific software necessary to see or use the vital information that you've identified? You may pause the presentation while you have this discussion. Since there are a number of ways IT access can be disrupted, it's important that you consider two types of situation. In one scenario, there might be some kind of warning of an impending outage, such as a forecast storm that might cause power outages, and the appropriate backup measures that can be taken. The other one is where there is no warning, like a fire in your server room or a computer virus. Warnings allow you the chance to take at least some prudent IT backup measures. No warning situations usually don't allow for any actions at all. The latter situation, no warnings, means some effort ahead of time is necessary if you want to safeguard vital information and then have subsequent access to it. Some organizations might consider dedicated off-site backup IT storage, which we'll discuss later, while others might even consider pre-positioning backup information or even backup IT equipment in other locations. These geographically dispersed locations are sometimes referred to as alternate relocation points, or ARPs. Other safeguards should include the concept of the drive-away kit and personal go kit. The drive-away kit contains those items a member considers essential to performing their mission essential function. Each kit may be somewhat unique, but most should include items such as checklists, supporting documents, key contact lists, and especially computer disks, thumb drives, and files specific to the member's position that will be important to continue operations, and any small specialized tools routinely used by the member. This kit should be stored in the normal workplace so that it may be driven away when adequate warning of impending hazard is given. On the other hand, personal go kits should contain a bare minimum of IT data and files necessary for an individual to accomplish mission essential functions, should hazards with little or no warning deny access to normal IT systems. This kit is purposely not stored at your place of work. Rather, it should be stored where you can access it should your normal work facility suffer some kind of calamity. Here's how the concept of warning and prepackaged kits can work. There may be little, if any, time for anything other than protecting yourself in an emergency with no warning. You'll probably have to depend on pre-positioned IT resources and your personal Go kit to sustain you for at least the short while. If the no warning hazard allows, there may be time to grab your drive-away kit, but you should never delay self-protection to grab any kind of resource. In a warn scenario, the alert or warning time available before the hazard becomes a direct threat, your organization could plan to conduct an orderly collection and transportation of drive-away kits and off-site storage of information. Indeed, if sufficient time exists, additional resources could be moved ahead of an approaching threat. If time is available, employers should allow personnel to go home, pack, and conduct any personal preparations necessary for their departure to the alternate relocation point. Working with the other participants, or in a subsequent offline discussion, answer the following questions. What are the pros and cons of using paper as a backup for vital IT information? What are the pros and cons of using disks, CDs, or other types of drives as a backup for your vital IT information? And what are the pros and cons of using off-site or remote backup and storage of your vital IT information? You may pause this presentation while you have these discussions. Working with the other participants, or in a subsequent offline discussion, answer the following questions. Are telephones a reliable backup for downed internet communications? And if so, why? Or if not, why not? Are cell phones a reliable backup for downed internet communications? Again, please explain your answer. It might be that the only reliable solution to the loss of internet and voice over IP communications is to establish a predetermined meet me or rally point location where information can be communicated directly on a daily scheduled basis. If it is impractical for large numbers of people to gather daily, consider a runner system where one person takes daily communications to them. If an adequate IT solution is not available where you are during an outage, yet you still must perform your mission essential functions, you might consider going to where IT is available, even if that means going out of town. If you do, there are several things you must make sure are in place should you decide to move to an alternate relocation point. Types of alternate relocation points include hot sites, a continuity facility that already has in place the computer, telecommunications, and environmental infrastructure required to recover critical business functions or information systems, or a warm site, a continuity facility that is equipped with some hardware and communications interfaces, electrical and environmental conditioning, which is capable of providing backup after additional provisioning, software, or customization is performed. Then there are joint use facilities. With this option, organizations should ensure that shared facilities are not overcommitted during a continuity situation. However, several organizations may pool their resources to acquire space that they can use jointly as a continuity facility. And then finally, the idea of virtual offices or telecommuting. To be effective, this option should provide access to vital records and databases to support the business function, and there has to be robust communications that are necessary to sustain operations of business functions. It has been our pleasure to work with you to determine your mission essential functions, the vital IT information and systems necessary to perform them, and the backup solutions should those systems ever experience an outage. We hope to work with you again to address your ongoing emergency and disaster preparedness needs. From the Disaster Resistant Communities Group, we'd like to thank you for viewing this presentation and working with your community to help those in need when disasters occur. If you're interested in other DRCG presentations, exercises, products, or services, please visit our website at www.drc-group.com or email us at info@drc-group.com, or certainly call us at area code 850-241-3565. Thank you.